Industry trends, insights, outlook in capital raises, mergers, and acquisitions.
Let's go.
Welcome to Venture Deal Talk. Nothing in this episode or related materials is investment or financial advice.
Welcome to Venture Deal Talk. Let's get ready to rumble. Without further ado, today I'm grateful for the opportunity to interview Chris from Montage Partners. Chris, let's dive in.
Great. Thanks for having me, Galen. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Very excited for you to be on the show today, Chris. And I'd love to get to know you more. Would you share your origin story and the origin story for Montage Partners?
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of kind of my background and kind of how I got here, I'll just share the highlights. So I went to BYU for my undergrad. It's in Utah. I studied finance, and after BYU, I went to investment banking. Did a stint in Houston, actually, for UBS. So I spent a little over a year there, worked in the oil and gas sector. After that, I came here to Montage Partners from investment banking. It was, like I said, I was working in oil and gas, and from an industry perspective, I wanted to get more exposure. So oil and gas was an interesting sector. It's a very global industry, and there's a lot of unique things about it. But coming here to Montage Partners allowed me to essentially get more focus from an industry perspective. So I came here, I've been here for about 5.5 years, and it's been great. So those are the basics. I grew up in Utah originally. I'm kind of a bit of an outdoor person, so that kind of defines a lot of who I am. And I'm actually back in Utah. So our firm is based in Scottsdale, Arizona. I moved back to Utah to start an office here in November of 2022. So it's been about 6 months now. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Fantastic. And how did Montage start? Like, what's the origin story?
Yeah. So the quick summary is that we started in 2004. So we've been around for 19 years. Our track record is we've done 19 investments. 9 of those are current, 10 are exited. And I can talk a little bit more about the industry focus and whatnot, but two co-founders started the firm. One is still with the firm. Another managing partner joined about 12 years ago. And we're a team of 7 full-time employees today. Again, I'm the only one in Utah, and then the rest are in Scottsdale.
Fantastic. That's great background. Thanks, Chris. And my next question is, tell us about Montage, your industry focus and your investment size.
Sure. So from an industry standpoint, our core sectors are business services, consumer, healthcare, industrial, and technology. So we touch quite a bit of the economy. To date, we haven't made an investment in healthcare. It's a target area for us, and it's an area that we do spend some time in. A lot of those investments, though, if you just kind of look at our track record, a lot of them skew industrial and blue collar. We've invested in a few niche manufacturing firms, and then business services, you'll see a number in that sector. And then consumer, we've done 4 deals directly in consumer. One that's in e-commerce, kind of a direct-to-consumer brand, which I spend a bit of my time focusing on e-commerce companies. And then from a size perspective, for EBITDA, we focus on 1.5 to 7 million of EBITDA. Really what more guides the deal size, though, is our check size. So from an equity check perspective, we're writing anywhere between 5 and 12 million for a platform investment. And then there's reserve for add-on acquisitions.
And what's your value proposition at Montage? Like, what makes Montage special or unique?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So if you look at our track record and you look at the companies that we've invested in to date, I would really say that the common thread has been backing exceptional management teams. And that can come in a few different forms. What gets us really excited is when we can back a really passionate founder who has built the company for, I mean, a lot of the companies that we invest in are been around for 20, 30, 40 plus years. And so backing a founder who has built the company, who has a lot of passion for the business, maybe they feel like they need some help to take it to the next level. That's a really exciting scenario for us. We've also backed a lot of management teams and some external folks that come in, and but that is really what's made a lot of our success, is backing the right people. And then from a kind of practical day-to-day perspective, we get involved in a lot of different areas. What's really important about our focus is that we don't come in and try to be anyone's boss. We're not hands-on day-to-day. We get involved with higher level strategic topics, whether that's strategic planning, executive recruiting, marketing. We've got some folks on our team that can essentially offer shared resources to our partner companies. A really good example of this is maybe a VP of operations or CFO. There's a need to either backfill someone or hire someone. We can come in and help with the recruiting efforts, organizing that process and looking for recruiters. A new website is another good one on the marketing front, or content for website. So there's a number of different areas, but again, it's really important typically for our management teams that we don't come in with a playbook. We're not day to day. That's not necessarily where we want to be spending our time. And when we back the right people, we don't need to do that. So that's really important for our philosophy.
Makes perfect sense. And what's your investment outlook over the next 12 months, and how are your qualification behaviors changing?
Yeah, another good question. I think we're focused on a lot of the same things that others are focused on. So I'll kind of share what our outlook is from just a macro perspective, and then I can share a little bit about how our criteria is evolving. I wouldn't say it's a change necessarily, but it's an evolution. So over the next 12 months, we're definitely focused on, again, the interest rate environment. We've seen inflation come down a bit, but we are also seeing things going on in the banking sector. So I would say there's some general caution. At the same time, our focus has always been investing in companies that have been successful for many years and that they're going to be successful with or without our involvement. And that includes, during good times and bad. So because of that, our focus hasn't changed much. Again, from a macro perspective, I would say that we are exercising more caution than maybe we would in different times. But those are kind of the headline things that we're focused on. And then in terms of kind of the investment criteria and where we're focused, so previous to now, or rather previous to maybe a year or two ago, our criteria was a little bit more broad in terms of just industries and the kind of companies that we looked at. And we still look at a number of different companies in a number of different industries. But as a firm, we are kind of evolving to be a more sector focused, have a more sector focused investment philosophy. And I mentioned earlier, I'm leading some efforts in e-commerce. There's a few areas that we're focused on right now that are evolving in terms of what kind of companies we look for. The big area that we're focused on right now is companies that service are essentially selling industrial products. They service generally infrastructure maintenance. So anything that goes into maintaining buildings or infrastructure, concrete, roads. We're focused in those areas. And what's a little bit unique about the thesis there is that we're looking for industrial companies that are benefiting from technology in their company, digital trends, e-commerce, those kind of things. We're seeing a lot of that activity come from consumer to industrial products. And we're seeing a lot of bigger companies implement a lot of that. And we think that there's a chance for the size of companies that we focus on to also, if they're not already focusing on that, maybe a chance to bring in some of those resources and benefit from some of those trends that are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen those trends in industrial and e-commerce as well, I think. So that's fantastic. Another question I had is, what are the reasons you chose the industries and verticals that you've selected? And like, are there any key performance indicators that really stand out that are really important to Montage when thinking about those sectors?
Sure. Yeah. The sectors that we focus on, it is pretty broad. I mean, we look at a lot, so I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of math or magic that has gone into those 5 core sectors. What's really important for us is our approach, at least historically, prior to some of these more direct searches, has been I would say more bottoms up than tops down. Top down meaning, we haven't really started with like a really specific industry and looked for companies in that space. With the bottoms up approach, the thought process is more so looking for great companies, right? So if we can find a great company that has a track record, that's been around for a long time, that has good customer relationships, we will make sure that it's in an industry that we're comfortable with. Real estate is a good example of something that we don't really get involved with. So anything that is real estate or has a real estate component to it, we tend to avoid. So that's kind of an easy one of just kind of explaining that we can pretty easily say that those maybe aren't a fit. But for the rest, the bottoms up approach, it really goes back to the point on backing the right management teams. If we can get underneath a company, understand what their value proposition is in the market, understand why they've won, why customers choose them, and we can get comfortable with who we're backing. The macro piece, the industry that they play in, is almost secondary to our focus, but those areas have been developed over time, and I'd say are areas in the economy that we see a lot happening, and some longevity to those spaces.
Yeah, I'm hearing Montage really loves to back teams and founders, and partner with those teams and founders to be successful. What news story will impact your investing the most in the next 12 months? What are you looking out for in the news?
In the news, I'd say it really goes back to the points I mentioned on what we're focused on over the next 12 months. I think, again, I think we're looking at most, news stories that others are looking at. The big ones being inflation, interest rates, the banking sector. We've got some overseas conflicts that have been much more in the news lately with Russia, Ukraine, and some other countries. So I'm not sure that those kind of issues are as weigh as heavily for us. But definitely following the interest rate environment and a few other areas are pretty important for us. But I wouldn't say there's any special thing that we're looking for, a special thing that wouldn't influence us heavily, unless it was something really big that happened to the economy. We are seeing more rhetoric from the Fed around a recession hitting later this year as a domino effect from the recent banking industry issues with Silicon Valley Bank and others. So that's probably an area that we're a little bit more focused. I mean, in terms of sitting in the investor seat, recessions are always, probably the scariest and the biggest thing that you'll see in the news. So I would say that probably would take the cake in terms of what weighs heaviest for us.
Makes sense. Thanks for the color. And moving to, getting deals to close. So in your experience, what are the critical reasons deals fall apart, and what are the solutions to cross the finish line? And what have you learned to optimize the path from LOI to close?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's a good question. First of all, I think it's really important to recognize that these are major life decisions for folks that have spent a lot of times their entire lives building companies. To us, it's, part of our day, right? It's what we do pretty much all the time. So it can be easy, I think, for folks in our seats to lose focus of the fact that these are, again, major life decisions for founders and for management teams. So going in with that perspective, I would say is the biggest thing that can be helpful for us. In terms of LOI to closing, I mean, it's a two-way street, right? One of the biggest points that can affect the process, at least from a timing perspective, is just collecting basic data, basic financial information. There's a lot that we need to do to understand the ins and outs of the company, to understand, what the risks are, what the opportunities are, the growth plan, what management is focused on. So there's a lot there. And a lot of times it can get overwhelming for owners and for management teams. The CFO position is a really good example. I mean, oftentimes the CFO, the controller, whoever is doing the accounting, there's a heavy lift that involves all of the data that we need to collect. So being patient, being really communicative, for the more smooth processes that we've been a part of, we've had like weekly update calls where we touch base and make sure that we're all on the same track, make sure that, we're checking off the things that we need to be checking off. So that's a big area of focus. Legal is probably the next biggest one. Legal work streams are, you have your letter of intent that kind of lays the foundation for definitive documentation. But, the letter of intent is this big, and the agreements are this big or this big. And so there's a lot to work out there. And again, it's often the first time that, folks on the other side of the table have been through this. So there's, hopefully they have a good attorney, they have good advisors on their side, but, it's a new process for them. So I'd say the patience is a big factor. And also, our approach is always, we want everyone around the table to feel like they're winning. If not, it's kind of not our style. It's not our philosophy. We view our partnerships with folks on the other side of the table as super important. The relationship is really important to us. So I think as we've approached it that way in the past, and as we continue to, that works out a lot of kinks that would otherwise maybe exist. But yeah, diligence, the collection of data, and then legal are big ones that we focus on.
Thank you so much for the answer there. And what advice would you share for M&A professionals looking for more deal flow?
So yeah, there's a few things I can share. I would also say there's a difference between deal flow and quality deal flow, or deal flow that is more actionable. In terms of deal flow, I mean, you can certainly get connected with a lot of investment banks, a lot of folks that are in the space and selling companies, kind of representing them on the sell side, right? And if you build the right database and you got those relationships, the deal flow will come, right? Like you can build that. I would say more commonly the challenge for us is again finding those companies that are strong companies that have been built well, that have strong infrastructure, strong teams, strong culture. That's kind of that's maybe a different question. And one of the better ways I think that M&A professionals can achieve that is becoming a little bit more targeted in what they're looking for. So, for example, the focus on industrial consumables for us, and especially those with an e-commerce thesis, that's something that you can kind of latch onto a little bit more definitively, and that you can I think it makes the process a little bit more clear. But at the end of the day, for us, finding the companies that have quality teams, have quality employee bases and cultures, for a lot of it, it's just you talk to a lot of folks, and you go through a lot of a lot of deal flow essentially. So there's definitely that distinction. But on the end of kind of being a little bit more targeted, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. But the more you can pull from your resources in terms of maybe an LP base or an operating partner program, that you can come with a little bit more knowledge of the industry, that's a big key factor that we've found that can really help the process.
Great. And where can our listeners go to learn more about Montage Partners, Chris?
Yeah, really our website, I'd say, is home based. So in terms of marketing, we do a lot. We have a director of marketing who publishes a lot of blog posts for us, is on LinkedIn. So if you just go to our website, you'll see all of our investments, you'll see the team, all of our contact information. But really our blog, I mean, it kind of blows out a bit more of what we're about, what we do, what our philosophy is. So I'd say if anyone wants to understand more, spend some time in that area, watch those videos, read those posts, and that'll give you a lot more information of what we do.
And how can people get in touch with you or connect with you online, Chris?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say same thing. So we've got our team page on our website, and it's got all of our contact information. It's got phone numbers, email addresses. So I'd encourage anyone to go there. It's just montagepartners.com. And I'd definitely be open to connecting with anyone that wants to chat.
Amazing. Well, I'm really grateful for you joining the show, Chris. Excited about Montage Partners, and thank you so much for the opportunity to connect today.
All right. Thanks, Galen. I appreciate it.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, the technology group at Focus Investment Banking. With over 40 years of success, the Focus team is experienced in sell side, buy side, and capital raises for technology companies. And I'm on Team Focus, specializing in artificial intelligence, cloud, cyber, managed service providers, e-commerce, and consumer. Whether you're looking for market outlook, a business valuation, or ready to sell your business, Focus Strategic Advisors are on your team to optimize for your success. If you're ready to sell your company, buy a company, or raise capital, call Focus Investment Banking, the experienced mergers and acquisitions advisors. Website focusbankers.com. Shout out to our favorite graphic designers, our sponsor, United Cute Unicorns, building brand identities and investor-ready pitch decks for your next capital raise. Check out their stunning portfolio at ucu.design.